And we are back with another episode of the podcast. This one a match preview of the visit of West Ham to Old Trafford. Now this comes off the back of a lacklustre performance in the semi-final against Chelsea, in which we were well beaten. I don't think any player really turned up on the day, which for an FA Cup semi-final is it's sort of unforgivable. I think the game left us with a few questions, especially regarding a few positions. It also told us what we already know, that outside of the first 11, the squad depth isn't good enough. We saw that against Norwich in the quarter final. We saw it again against Chelsea, even though we went with a slightly stronger team. But the questions that I allude to that game throws up, for me, mainly surround David De Gea and Victor Lindelof. Now, for me, those two players were at fault for at least two of the goals. David De Gea, especially. I think he's been in a steady decline for the last 12 to 18 months, De Gea. Now I'm a big fan of David De Gea, and I've always tried to back him because I know how good a goalkeeper he is. I think we all know how good a goalkeeper he is. But I always used to say David De Gea would win you 12 points a season on his own. He'd make vital stops that'd prevent losses or prevent draws when you were in winning positions. He was good for 12 points a season. On his own, that's how many he would get you. David De Gea of the last 12 to 18 months, I feel, cost you 12 a season now. And I don't know where it's come from. You don't go from being the world's best keeper to useless overnight. So something's had to have happened to explain this dip in form, this massive dip in form. Because there was one point when Real Madrid obviously was sniffing with the fax machine issue that we couldn't have ever thought about David De Gea leaving. It would have been the end of us had David De Gea left. We were all, I think every United fan was just so happy when that fax machine broke. Because we knew how important he was to us, to our team. But now he doesn't command his defence, he doesn't command his area, which he never really has done. He's always been a shot stopper, but he's not stopping shots anymore. Everything seems to be going by him and you're waiting for the next mistake. The first goal, I know it's come at him quickly from close, but he's got a big hand to that. When you get a hand to a ball like he did, it's got to stay out. You've got to get your body behind it, or you've got to be firmer with your hand, and that ball has to stay out. The second one, I mean, it starts with a stupid ball from Brandon Williams, and obviously Lindelof and Maguire not going to close down, but that shot shouldn't have beaten a Sunday League goalkeeper. There was no movement on the ball. There was no power behind the shot. It's simply just squirmed under him, and that's the mistakes now that are defining David De Gea. Rather than those outstanding class saves that are winning you football matches, he's being defined by the mistakes that are costing us football matches. And personally, I believe that he should be dropped for the last two games of the season. And then who knows where we go next season, obviously with Dean Henderson waiting in the wings and performing very well over the last couple of years. Like I say, with David De Gea, I wouldn't necessarily want to I don't wish this on David De Gea, but ultimately football, it cannot be a sentimental game. We cannot keep telling ourselves that De Gea saved us 5 years ago. It's not 5 years ago anymore, it's now. And if we want to build and we want to progress and we want to challenge, we need the most able players in the team. And at the moment, David De Gea is not one of the most able goalkeepers in the league. Like I say, personally, I think he should be dropped for the last 2 games of the season. I think Sergio Romero should come in. Romero's never put a foot wrong when he's been called upon. We know West Ham are a decent side. Obviously, they beat us earlier in the season down at the London Stadium. They beat Chelsea a few weeks ago. They are a capable side. They have dangerous players in Mikel Antonio, Yarmolenko, Manuel Lanzini, Felipe Anderson. They have good footballers. This is not going to be a walk in the park. I just hope that we act more of United of old, in that when we were beaten, and when we were beaten convincingly as we were on Sunday, you wouldn't want to play us next, because there was going to be a real bounce back. And that's what I'm hoping for this. I'm hoping that we get that real bounce back, and we go out there to score as many as we can for that goal difference. Obviously, a point puts us in the top 4 anyway, which we're sort of there now. We're bang level with Leicester, who we've still got to play. But I want a goal difference cushion, 3 points, a goal difference cushion going into that final game to take as much pressure off it as possible, because that is also not an easy game. We are looking tired. I think that was the biggest thing that I noticed on Sunday. You could tell Chelsea had 48 hours more rest. We looked tired, and that again links back to that squad depth. So again, I hope the board were watching that, and I hope they understand the investment that's needed, not just in the first 11, but in the squad as a whole. Because we're being left with, like I say, those questions. I touched on De Gea, didn't really touch on Lindelof. The reason I sort of hold him accountable for the first and the second goal, I briefly touched on. He should have closed down for the second, as Maguire should. But that first goal, you can't let a player, a striker of Giroud's quality, get in front of you in the box. You also have to understand that when Maguire's just had a clash of heads and Bailly's been taken off, at least getting you through to half time as the only unscathed centre-back, you have to be commanding. You have to realise, right, Maguire probably isn't 100% now, Bailly's gone, I have to be the pin that holds this back line together. He didn't. He's not capable of doing that. Again, I don't necessarily dislike Lindelof. I think he's a capable player. But again, when we're talking about moving to that next level and winning games, we have to have the best players around, and we need somebody more solid than Lindelof at centre-back. I don't mind Lindelof coming in as a squad player, but he cannot be a week in, week out starting centre-back when you've got aspirations that we should have. Like I say, I touched on the fact that I believe personally that David De Gea should be dropped. So let's move on to the predicted starting 11 for the visit of West Ham. Even though I personally think De Gea should be dropped, I don't think he will be. I think David De Gea starts in goal. And my reason for this is effectively Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's made him undroppable. I agree with a lot of what Ole has done since he's been at United. I even agree with the fact that he started a back three in the cup final. In hindsight, it probably didn't work, but he did it in every big game this season, so I understand why he again stuck with that back three in a big game. So I don't necessarily criticise him for that. My only criticism is when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is still claiming that David De Gea is the best keeper in the world. You cannot call your keeper the best keeper in the world and then drop him after mistakes. He's effectively made De Gea undroppable, at least until the end of the season. So again, for me, and based on what Ole said, David De Gea will start in goal. The back four is pretty much going to pick itself because we only have 4 fit defenders pretty much. Wan-Bissaka is going to play at right back. Again, I thought he had a bit of an average game against Chelsea. He could probably do with a rest. He hasn't looked himself in the last few weeks. But we all know how good he is on his day, and he plays. The centre-backs, again, because we only really have 2 fit centre-backs, it's going to be Lindelof alongside the captain, Harry Maguire. And then at left back, with Shaw being injured, Brandon Williams will play. Like I say, he made a silly mistake against Chelsea with that ball inside for the second goal. But on the whole, I think this season, in his first season, his emerging season, Brandon Williams has been very, very good. I'm very impressed by Brandon Williams, and I think he starts. I think Ollie goes back to what's worked in the past, to be honest. I think Matic plays in midfield alongside Pogba. Matic, I think, has gone off the boil since he got the contract. Maybe that is just tiredness again. He's played every game since the Spurs game. He's in some capacity, whether it be starting or brought off the bench. I don't think Matic can play that many games in such a short space of time. I think that's why we had issues with Matic earlier in the season and his form. I think we're starting to see a bit of that again. I think, again, the board need to really look at bringing somebody in to relieve the pressure on Matic, a proper defensive midfielder. Pogba alongside him, he's looked okay in a lot of the games. I don't think he did much against Chelsea. Again, I understand why he was dropped for that game, with Ollie preferring the discipline of Fred. We do know Pogba goes wandering sometimes in big games and doesn't track his man. So again, I understand that decision, but I think Pogba comes back in the team for this one. We're back to the usual front four. He's going to go Rashford out on the left, who again had a very quiet game against Chelsea. Bruno as the number 10, who I thought against Chelsea was targeted. I think he got a few nasty unnecessary knocks. I think they certainly set out to target Bruno. We're then going to see Mason Greenwood on the right. Again, didn't really do a lot when he came on against Chelsea, and has had a quiet few games since he got that stamp on the ankle against Southampton. But again, we all know what special talent he is. We all know what he's capable of. I don't think the change with Dan James worked out against Chelsea, but again, I understand why he made it when he set up a counter-attacking team to put that level of pace in there. And finally, I think we see the return of Martial up top. Obviously came on for the injured Boye against Chelsea, won us the penalty, but other than that didn't really do a lot after he got kicked by Zuma in what definitely should have been at least a free kick. So I think Ollie goes back to what's working for these final 2 games, dependent on what happens against West Ham. Obviously this game is now massive. We need top 4, and I'd like I say, that cushion going into the game against Leicester. So that goal difference cushion. In terms of a score prediction, West Ham are a very good side, and I think a lot of this comes down to David De Gea's form. I could see us winning it 2-0, but if the same De Gea turns up, I can see West Ham getting a couple. I'm going to go with 2-0 because I think we're going to be a lot more compact at the back. I think we're going to want to put this right. We're going to want to put that performance right from the weekend. So I'm going to go 2-0 United, and another 3 points to move us into pole position for that top 4. So that is the match review for the West Ham game. That is our opinions on what's to come for the game. We may be completely wrong, we may be right, who knows. Leave your predicted scores and predicted starting 11s in the comments, or reach out to us on Twitter @RantDevil. You can also catch our match review after the game, and that will be available on our website www.rantsofareddevil.com, where you can find a load of other United related content as well as this episode and past episodes of this podcast. This podcast is available on YouTube, and if you do like this content, if you could like this video on YouTube, and if you are listening to this on YouTube or on iTunes, if you could hit that subscribe button as well, that really helps us out and we'd massively appreciate that. If you don't listen on either of those platforms, you can also find this podcast, as I've mentioned, on our website, rantsofareddevil.com, and it is also available on Spotify as well. So until the next episode of this podcast, we will speak to you later. I hope you enjoy the game, and I hope you enjoy the match review that we're hoping is a positive one. So until the next time, we will see you later.